Are you a psychedelic practitioner who identifies as a woman, like a psychiatrist, psychotherapist, coach, guide, shamanic practitioner, or spiritual counselor? Do you use compassion-focused practices in your personal and or professional life? Are you familiar with the myth of the heroine's journey? If so, you may qualify for a study aimed at understanding the unique experiences of psychedelic practitioners who identify as women and use compassion-focused practices as a tool for personal and professional development. If this sounds like you and you want to participate in this incredible heuristic study, send me a message. Reach out, mkenney, Kenney, at mymail.ciis.edu. The link is in the description box below. If this sounds like you guys, definitely reach out. You get an opportunity to first see if you're eligible to participate in the study. And if you do meet qualifications, this is an incredible way to allow your story to be captured in the realm of transpersonal psychotherapy literature. So it's an awesome study. Reach out if you're interested. I'll share more details about how I'm going to run it, what it's going to look like, how your archetype is going to get illuminated through this study, and how important your individual story is to helping people deepen their experience with transpersonal psychotherapy in the space of psychedelic medicine and heart-centered techniques and approaches. So it's major. Reach out. I look forward to hearing from you. Welcome to the Third Realm Integration Podcast, where our unconscious minds meet and the transformation begins. I am your host, Maegan Kenney. Let's get started. Really going on? Holy moly, it has been a very long time since I have been on this mic. I'm not even looking at the last date that I put a podcast episode up because it feels like it was too long ago. Too long. I feel like I'm reconnecting with a long lost friend at this very moment. One that I like too. Isn't that crazy? What's up, you guys? It has been a minute since I have last been on here, and I could spend a lot of time talking about what I've been up to and where I'm headed, but we'll be here all day if I do that. So this is what I wanted to do. Not do that, and instead do this. I want to talk about the psychic vampire archetype. Now, if you are an empath, or you are a rescuer, or you have a relationship with addiction of any kind, or you tend to draw in narcissists, chances are you have a relationship with the vampire. If you are a therapist, if you are in the healing profession, if you are a professional caregiver, I can guarantee you that the vampire pattern is playing itself out as one of your soul archetypal contracts. And we're hearing this word a lot these days, the psychic vampire. So hopefully this isn't new to anybody, but let's break it down because I'm feeling a little inspo to dig into this archetype, especially since, and I'll talk more about this in a second, but I recently did my archetypal wheel. And I gotta tell you, the vampire is in my chart, which means it lives in me, which means I have a relationship with it, and it plays itself out in whatever way it plays itself out. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But essentially, the basics of the vampire archetype is that it is a force. It is an archetypal pattern that will probably activate anybody, but the vampire is attracted to certain types of energy. So we got to think about the vampire back in fairy tales and myth. Think about it think about this for a second. Let's just contextualize this so we can really get anchored and connected into the collective consciousness. Why is it that over the last, 10 years maybe, there has been a vampire phenomena that has been playing itself out in our collective? Now, don't get me wrong, Twilight, one of my favorite movies, okay? But we are seriously talking about the way in which the vampire archetype is actually manifesting itself in the collective consciousness through movies and freaking TV shows and everything. Everything's about the vampire. Why is that? Why are we obsessed with the vampire? Large in part, it is because it is resonating with our collective consciousness, which means we are manifesting this archetype, making it real, which is why everybody now knows what this is. There's a line up there. We have a deep collective relationship with the vampire archetype, which is why it's showing itself to us in our entertainment. We are manifesting it, and it is also reflecting where we're at as a collective. So the vampire is probably one that lives in a lot of us right now. And it is therefore one we have a relationship with, both in ourselves and in the outer world. So always keep in mind that when you're doing your dance with your archetypes and you're trying to figure out what archetypal relationship you have just engaged in with the other. Maybe you are in a relationship with that person's child, their victim, their prostitute, their saboteur, their healer, their freaking whatever. It's not about the fact that it just lives outside beyond you. It's also, you're also in that archetype yourself. You're expressing it. So if you draw in vampires, you can guarantee that you're also a vampire to someone else. It is like the same way that you're going to be the hero in someone's story, you can guarantee you're also going to be the villain in someone else's. Okay? Is this making sense? What we see is what we are. What we are in relationship with is also what we are. If we are the victim, we can guarantee we have victimized other people. So it goes both ways. There's a bidirectional exchange there on any one of our patterns. And I think that is one of the hardest truths for people to take in, because everybody wants to be the victim. Everything's being done to me. And self-awareness requires us to see that we're actually doing the exact same thing to somebody else. And healing requires radical self-responsibility to rein that in and say, yeah, that is true. Where am I doing it with? Who am I doing it to? Why am I doing it? What wound is it coming out of? How does it serve me? Meaning, how does it keep me safe? And how does it help me play small? And why am I resistant to changing it? What part of me doesn't want to let this one go? But we have to see ourselves as the orchestrator of our own reality, because that is the truth. And we are caught in a vacuum of self-deception when we are unable to see how we are getting in our own way and how that is the root cause of why we're not healing. So this is like, I'm just kind of dropping the hammer of the truth down here for everybody today, because I feel like we're in a state right now in the collective where everybody is needing additional support and additional help. I think I had 5 clients this week ask for double sessions. That's never happened in 10 years. And my practice is completely full. I don't have one spot open. Why? Why is everybody reaching out for help? Why is everybody ungrounded and unstable right now? At what point has the floor been knocked out from underneath everybody? So to build that deep self-awareness, we have to ask ourselves, when we're in relationship with something beyond us, we have to know that it is also in us, and we are participating in our own self-sabotage. How are we getting in our own way? So back to the vampire. If you draw in the vampire, you are also the vampire, and you got to get real about that. Where, how, when, with who? Why? In the vampire, as we know in myth and story and film and television, that the vampire feeds off of your blood. You are their feeding supply. And they are starving. And they want you and your energy because they are empty. And the only way that they can get filled is if they feed off of your energetic supply. And in myth, the vampire sucks the blood where? From the neck. There's no coincidence there. That is symbolic. Because the 5th chakra is the throat chakra. It is where we speak our truth, and it is where we harness the power of choice. And if we have a blocked throat chakra, we are going to feel powerless and incapable and unable to make choice, to harness the power within, to make the choices that are in alignment with our soul. And this is where addiction comes in as well, because we all know that the first step is admitting that you are powerless to the drug, the substance, or the behavior, and that you have lost your power of choice because your mind and your heart are fighting. So the vampire doesn't just suck your energy, they also rob you of the power of choice. And you will feel powerless in the presence of a vampire. Now, there are different degrees and different intense levels of intensity as to how this archetype plays itself out. I stayed with my teacher for 6.5 years. You could easily say that I was in the vampire archetype because I was feeding off of the information and the knowledge and the wisdom that she was giving me. I also love to read, and I love to research, and I love to acquire spiritual knowledge that I can experientially filter into heart-centered wisdom. Some would say that I'm like a glutton for it, that I am actually addicted to acquiring this knowledge. Vampire. I might not be sucking the life force out of somebody else, but I'm sucking the life force out of that damn material. I'm going to go for that training. I'm going to take another course. I'm going to get another degree, another certification, read another book. Really. Any of you guys that know me, come on, you guys can totally attest to this. It is real. And I got to check that on a regular basis and ask myself, is this coming out of a fear of not knowing enough? And that's why I'm about to slip into this vampire energy and just suck the life out of this thing. Or am I looking at this as just an added benefit? It's something that's going to bring me into a deeper relationship with truth. And if so, then I go for it. And so that vampire archetype is symbolic in the fact that it robs you of your power of choice. So what happens is you carry a light. You're resonating at higher vibration. People want to be around you. You have something that they want. That's an 8th house problem. You have something they want. And so the vampire is attracted, like the narcissist is the vampire, attracted to the empath, that is the rescuer. Because they have something that the narcissist wants. The vampire wants something from you and will drain your life force to get it. And then they're fed. They are on cloud 9 after they hang out with you. They're pumped. They have just artificially fed off of your supply. Which means 1, they go home full, content, and restful. And they never have to make changes in their own life because they just stole your energy and got the hit that they needed. It's like when people are addicted to fantasy and dreaming in the vision, but they never actually follow it up with action. They don't have to. They already got what they needed from the dream itself. There's no incentive there to put anything into practice because they just got high off of the dream. It's the same thing with the vampire. They just got high off of your supply, which means now they're full. They don't have to do the work themselves. You just did it for them, unconsciously, of course, because why would you willingly give somebody your energy like this? If you were conscious and aware of it and had clarity on it, no, you'd stop it. But this is all an unconscious interplay an expression of unconscious patterns and dynamics going back and forth. And this is where we get caught, when we can't see it. So that vampire goes home full. You, as the light being, goes home empty, drained, exhausted, burnt out, and likely resentful. Because really, you're mad that someone just stole your energy supply. I mean, energy is our most valuable resource. Time, money, energy. Time, money on the physical. Really, time and energy on the next level. And then soul fuel at the cosmic level. But I mean, those are our resources. Someone steals my energy, we got a problem. We got a real serious problem. And it's not about blaming the other person. It's about taking responsibility for how you co-signed a leak in your energetic field. Now, maybe you didn't know it, but you know it now, which means you better do something about it. Because you're going to be left resentful and blaming the other person for what you allowed them to do. So as soon as that vampire runs through that energy supply, where are they going? They're not looking within. They're coming back to you. And so now you got a cycle. And now you're caught in it. And if you have light and you carry a high vibration and you have something that other people want, you can guarantee that you're going to draw in a psychic vampire. Whether that's a loving, caring, open heart, wisdom to share, joy that you bring to the room. When you walk into the room, you light it up. And you have to be protective of the resource that you have. That energy that you have is your resource, that joy, that light, that heart, that truth. People don't really want the truth, I'll be honest with you, but they might want the kindness that comes with the sharing of the truth. They might be attracted to the wisdom that truth is packaged in. I mean, I've kind of worked through this a little bit by just sharing radical truth, because I know it's not easy for people to hear. And I only want to draw people in my circle who are willing to get real and hear the truth. And that's how I've broken all my people-pleasing patterns, because I'm not here to please you. I'm here to speak the truth, which means I'm speaking to your soul. I'm not speaking to your wounded ego. I do not care how your ego receives this. My job is to out-manipulate your most manipulative egoic parts so I can get to the soul in you. Me and your soul want to have a conversation. Me and your ego don't want to have a conversation. Because I'm not going to engage in that power struggle. I quit. I'm out. Done. You win. Not fun. Doesn't interest me. Not exciting. Boring. Right? That's how I lose my energy. That's how I know I'm engaged with a psychic vampire archetype in someone else. If I know that I've just gotten myself into a power struggle where I am trying to break through and overpower that person's wounded ego, that's a me problem, not a them problem. That's my ego. And you're going to lose energy every time when you engage in that. When somebody is unwilling to receive the information that you're providing. Someone has a problem and they come to you. And you're inclined to say, well, what are your options? What options do you have in front of you? What possibilities are there? Let's try to look at the possibilities. Let's try to look at the open doors as opposed to the closed doors. What do you have access to at your disposal? What are your options? And you've asked them now to step into their creative force, their transpersonal side. Well, the transpersonal is all of us, but that real mystical side of being able to tap into the possibilities of who you can become if you're willing to take the first step. You outline all of that. You give suggestions. And the person just says, yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, but I already tried that. Or I can't, but I can't though. I just can't. You know that you're now in a relationship with the psychic vampire. And that's just one example. But you see that a lot as a therapist. People that are not ready to make the changes. And here you are, putting all this work in. You've chosen a profession and a job that nobody wants to do. I don't know any. The only people that I know are other therapists. And I've only met them through the therapy realm. I don't just walk through the world and meet people who are therapists. Nobody wants to do this. Sorry, hate to bring it to you, but it's just tough. It's tough work. You have to be willing to be in the presence of somebody else's suffering, which means you have to be a clear vessel before you can even go into that space in order to even do that and not get totally decimated by it. And so you're sitting in the session with somebody and you're beginning to get access to their soul. You know what the patterns are. You know where they're caught. You know why they're caught. You know what their core archetypal story is, and you know how they're getting in their own way. And so you start doing the dance. All right, well, let's see how resistant this ego really is. Throw out a suggestion, see what happens. Throw out an idea. What are they going to say? And then you assess continually about how that person is receiving the information that you're putting down. And when you get a block in a yeah, but, or an I can't, that person's telling you a lot. And if you keep trying and trying and trying to meet that resistance with more force, you're going to get drained. And that person is going to get fed by the amount of work that you just put in to provide them opportunities, options, and possibilities about where they can make changes in their life, which means you've just fed their dependency pattern because they now do not have to make any changes because you just did all the work, which is what they wanted, which means you're in a relationship with a psychic vampire. And when you're the psychic vampire and you're doing the yeah buts and the I can't and this sucks and yeah, I already tried that and it didn't work and this better work on the first time because I'm not willing to make a commitment. So whatever my problem is, this better get fixed like right now. You do not get fed by that. When you're caught in the vampire and that's the stuff you're doing, you are entirely consistently draining your energetic supply. Because like Carolyn May says, there's no energetic dividend that comes back to you to refuel you. So it's a bad investment. When you're in psychic vampire, you are making a bad investment because you're making an investment that is a money pit, essentially, symbolically speaking. It's an energy pit. Your complaining, your I can'ts, your yeah buts are siphoning off your energy and you're going to get nothing in return because you have not tapped into the realm of possibility. You have not activated the creator that lives within. You are not getting access to your wise, feminine, creative energy. So there's no payback. You're not getting anything in return. So what do you have to do? You have to go find someone who you can feed off of. Okay? This is like, who's with me? Who right now is saying, shit, I've done that? And who is saying, yep, I can spot that one a mile away? And you can also notice the psychic vampire when you're in relationship with somebody who is taking a lot. You can see the level of entitlement from a mile away because they're asking for more from you than anybody else does that's in their position. And they're asking for more of you than what is appropriate for you to give. People who are needy, people who want your attention, people who are, contacting you 1,000,000 times in a short period. Feed me, feed me, feed me is what they're saying. The question is are you going to be asleep enough at the wheel to keep serving it up? I mean, at some point you got to realize that you've just been pulled into a spell. If you're agreeing to enable the shadow side of that archetype, you're under an archetypal spell. And that's okay. We all get caught under the spell. I mean, the point is you got to wake up. You got to have a resource that is accessible to you to wake up and say, shit, I just got seduced. Whoa, I just got hooked. How the hell did I get here? And once you have the awareness, you can rein back in your power of choice and do something different in that moment. And you cut it. You cut the cord, you cut the supply, and the answer is no. We're done. Shut it down. And so now, what the vampire was taking from you, which was your power of choice, you've just now reclaimed. You're no longer in a power struggle. You're saying, no, we're not doing this. So I'm not giving you suggestions. I'm not giving you advice. I'm not going to try to help you. I'm not going to give you what you're looking for. I'm going to do it a different way. If you're looking for me to do the work for you, if you're looking for my joy, I'm not going to give it to you. So I'm going to go into the situation with a clear, shored up auric boundary that has no holes and no cracks and no gaps in it. There's no leak going on here. And if I have to be around you, I'm going in with that mindset. You get to take nothing from me because I'm not going to give it. And so if you have a relationship with somebody close to you who's a psychic vampire, you got to renegotiate the terms of that relationship. You got to change it up. You got to rewrite the unconscious contract and you got to sign it. And that person's going to react to the change, just like they're reacting to the light and the high vibe that you're holding. And that's a them problem. That's not a you problem. However they react is their responsibility and their responsibility only. You may have triggered it and you're taking responsibility for that because the reason why you triggered it is because you're making positive changes that need to be made because you're choosing to not enable the shadow side of their archetype. And you're saying, I'm not going to get seduced by the spell of your archetype. You're possessed by the archetype. I can see it. I'm not going into that with you. I'm not going to lose myself in your archetypal possession. When we are possessed by an archetype, it means we don't even know that it's playing itself out. We're completely unconscious to it. It owns us. We have no level of awareness around it at all. And this is where we have no control of anything. Our unconscious mind is what is controlling us. And this is when life happens to us, not with us. This is the difference between fate and destiny. When you're under the archetypal spell, it's fate. Life is just going to go as according to plan of the system and the map of that archetype or those archetypes. And when you are aligned with destiny, you are using free will and your power of choice to influence the outcome, the highest outcome of all of your patterns. The light side of the psychic vampire is that you can spot a psychic vampire coming. And you know how to say no and set up the boundary and reclaim your power. You also know when and where you're doing that to other people and you stop doing it. And you pull back your own sense of self. And you look within. And you ask yourself, where am I not doing the work? Where I am unconsciously asking somebody else to do it for me. And you can also express it. You can also be in the archetype and express it from the light side of wanting to absorb all of the teachings, wanting to absorb all of the material. And surely there is somebody out there that's willing to give it freely, that isn't burnt out by giving it. That's how the psychic vampire plays itself out for me when I'm in the session and I'm coming from the lightest side of it. I don't get drained by that. In fact, I get fed by that. But I'm getting fed by the wisdom that's working through me, not by the person that I'm sitting with. Nor am I drained by what I'm giving the person that I'm sitting with because it's not mine to begin with. I'm channeling it from a higher freaking place. It is not mine. Yeah, I studied this shit and I know a lot. But the words that come together in the sequence that get delivered as the message to the person at the time when it gets delivered, I do not orchestrate. That just comes out of me. And it can be a lot, I've been told. It can be a lot to take in. Rapid speed, rapid fire here. But hey, it is what it is. I mean, I could try to show some restraint, and I have been practicing that a little bit more. But it's an intuitive hit, and it has to just come out. And I'm not interfering with that. That I'm not doing. I'm not holding back on a message that I'm getting that I know you need to hear. So it's got to be said. And so working with the psychic vampire will help you navigate the shadow side of this collective, because it is in rare form. And it comes from the ultimate question of, what do you think you're owed? And where are you entitled in your life? The shoulds and the supposed tos. I did a whole podcast episode on this a while back. And I laid it down. I slammed it right down. You are not owed anything. You are not owed life. You are not owed health. You are certainly not owed money. You're not owed happiness. You're not owed safety. You're not owed a life without trauma. You're not owed perfect parents. You're not. And if you think you are, you're entitled. And we live in a very entitled society where we think if we do all the things, and we're nice, and we're kind, and we study hard, and we work hard, and we do all the things, and we get the blah, 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 and we get the job, everything's going to be set. I mean, really? Where did we get this? Somebody lied to us, and we all co-signed the lie. Just signed, sealed, delivered, just locked in, like, yep, that's it. That couldn't be further from the truth, because life be lifin', okay? LOL, life on life's terms. Life is going to do what it does. And this is where we begin to release our attachment to the outcome, and we get the hooks out of our soul, because we realize that we have no control over the outside world. And an attempt to control the outside world because we are pursuing inner peace is a futile attempt. I'll say it again. Our attempts to control the outside world in order to establish inner peace is a futile attempt. It will never work. Because we are leaking power when we focus on anything outside ourselves. The answer and the truth only lives in one place, and that is within. And if you are not looking within, you are doing something wrong. You cannot focus on the outside world. You cannot change external events, including people. You cannot change people. You definitely cannot change people. People can change themselves just like only you can change yourself. And so whatever archetype you feel like you are in relationship with in the outer world, it's not about that. The world is just serving as the mirror so you can look within. It's up to you to see the reflection. I mean, it is. It's only up to you to see the reflection. That's all it is. And that's the beauty of a projection in the first place. You're projecting a shadow part of yourself into the outside world. It gets mirrored back to you in the form of the people around you, which tells you it also lives within you. The pattern, I mean. You got to read it symbolically. It's not literal. Because everybody gets caught in the literal. Well, I would never do that to anybody else. I can't believe they did that to me. No, get out of that. Get out of that. Please get out of that. That's so literal, it's ridiculous. It's not about their actual behaviors and exactly what they're doing. Oh, I would never do that. Yeah, we know. That's why you're judging. That's why you're using the shadow side of discernment and you're judging, because I would never do that. Can't believe they did that to me. But it's the same pattern. You're sharing that same, whatever the pattern is that person is expressing. It might not be the actual literal behavior. But they have a fear of something and they're grabbing for power. And you can guarantee you're doing the same thing somewhere in your life, maybe in a different kind of way, but it's the same pattern. It's the same fear. And it's the same relationship to power, which is what it all comes down to. Where are we losing power? Where are we grabbing for power? What does power mean to us? And what do we do when we feel powerless? What's our egoic tactic? What's our mechanism? What do we do when we now feel powerless? How do we react? Do we stomp our feet and throw a tantrum? I'm mad. Okay, do we go child on it? What do we do? Do we get spiteful? Do we want revenge? Do we withhold compassion? Do we shut down? Do we become passive aggressive? Right? Like, do we get angry? Do we get violent? Do we sabotage other people? Do we gossip? Right? So paying attention to how your ego grabs for power is going to tell you a lot, a whole lot. And it's important to keep in mind that the only way that you retain your own power is to be unattached to the outcome. This is how you break people-pleasing patterns. Why in God's name would we be on this earth to please and enable the wounds of other people? Please, if somebody could answer that question for me, I would love an answer. I mean, really. We're afraid to do something because we think it's going to hurt that other person. When the hurt that other person may or may not feel is their responsibility anyway. Their emotional reaction is their responsibility, just like ours is ours. But somehow we want to play God and think that we're supposed to save people from their own suffering. That is the most absurd, illogical, irrational, ridiculous thing that we could ever think. That is the biggest lie. That is the biggest self-deception that the codependent, the wounded empath, and the rescuer and the fixer are caught in. So when you're one of those archetypes and you've been identified by the vampire, you got to let go of that if you want to make a change and save yourself. It doesn't matter how they feel. Frankly, it doesn't. And I say that from an open heart because I am embracing the fact that this person is caught in the shadow of their own archetype. And I know the only way that they're going to even have the opportunity to see it is to feel it. Life is about lessons. We're all here to learn from each other. We're not here to make life painless for each other. I mean, of course, I don't mean that by go out and inflict pain on people. That's why I'm breaking down all the ways in which we grab for power and get clear about that so we can stop doing it. But there's a big difference between grabbing for power and trying to cause pain to somebody by trying to make them feel powerless, and you holding your own power and walking in your soul-driven truth that in turn might make people uncomfortable. They are not one and the same. So you walking in alignment with your truth, if that offends people, if that hurts people, that's a them problem, not a you problem. And what you're doing is you're actually walking in the space of compassion because you're walking through the container of your own heart, which means you're walking in truth, which means you see the shadow that lives in that person and you are not willing to enable it, because if you do, you are not giving that person an opportunity to grow. It is the biggest crime you could ever commit, is to enable the shadow side of somebody's archetype and say yes to it rather than saying no. And by saying no, we think we're going to hurt or offend or break that person, as if we have the power to break anybody anyway. Talk about an ego. Holy crap. An ego projection. As if we have that much power anyway. It's like, no, they're going to be all right. Don't worry about it. I think they can handle it. They can handle a no. If they can't handle a no, they got a rough road ahead. And that has nothing to do with you. That doesn't mean you don't say no. It means you say no even more. So when you're doing the dance, when you've been caught in the seductive dance with any archetype, but especially the psychic vampire, you need to ask yourself, I'm losing energy. What do I have to do now to cut the supply so I can go refuel? And make sure that that internal resource tank never gets this empty ever again. Ever again. And if that person is close to you and you're maintaining a relationship with them, you got to change the dynamics of that relationship. You got to let go of the fear that they're going to be upset with you. You got to recognize that you have something that they want, and that's why they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. And you have to become unbothered by it. We cannot get consumed by the possessions of other people's archetypes. If other people are possessed by their own archetypes, you cannot take that on and expect to survive in this world and reach your highest potential and walk from your highest self. It just does not work. And most importantly, you got to come back and ask yourself again with all the archetypes, but we're talking about the vampire here. So you got to come back and ask yourself, how am I draining the life force of other people? How am I feeding off of others to the point where I'm disempowering them? And when you're a therapist, you got to be really conscious of this because you're working with people that are caught in depression, which means they're caught in pessimism, which means they're unable to step into the transpersonal essence of life and see the options and possibilities and opportunities in front of them. And if you get caught with trying to give advice and give suggestions and push that person to see the light and wake up so they can make a change, and you don't first recognize what you're in a relationship with, you are agreeing to get drained by the psychic vampire that lives in them. And they will never change. You have now created dependency, which is the exact thing a therapist should be aiming to break. Therapists should not be feeding a client's dependency. You should be helping them build the resources that they need to do the work on their own with your guidance and support. That's what being a therapist is all about. I'm not doing it for you. I'm not giving you the answers. I will give you suggestions if you show me that you want them and you're open to receive them. If you don't make the changes, that doesn't affect me. You're more than welcome to stay in your suffering if you want. That has nothing to do with me. I don't know why you'd be in therapy if that's what you want to do, so we might have to renegotiate the terms of that, of like, why are you here? Because I typically have to see some forward movement and change. You got to take what we're doing and actually apply it. But you can't get hooked into that. And this is where this is why burnout is so high for professional caregivers, because this is what they get caught in. They get overly invested in people doing the work themselves, and when they don't, they get frustrated. And they get resentful. And then you know what the therapist does? The therapist goes so easily into victim. It's like so crazy. It's so funny though, because we all do it. Clients that are not showing up to the session, canceling, not committed, asking for all this extra stuff. And you know what the therapist says behind the scenes? Look at what I'm sacrificing for you. You can ask any therapist, I will guarantee you they have said this throughout the course of their journey of being a therapist. That they have said, look at what I am sacrificing for you. Who else is willing to sit here with you and listen to you complain or be with you in your own suffering? Who else is going to do that? No one else is going to do that for you. So yeah, you do have to pay me for that because no one else is willing to do it. And it's a huge sacrifice because I just gave up time that I could be with my family or time that I could be outside going for a walk. Look at what I'm giving up for you. And so that's the the therapist getting caught in their own shadow of the victim, which is the rescuer. And so there you have it. And then you get burnt out, and then you don't want to do the work anymore, and then you can't be of service to yourself or anybody when you come from that perspective. You're choosing to do the work. You can't blame anybody else for that. And if somebody is not willing to show up and be committed to the work, you got to say, this is not the right fit. Sorry, I can't help you. I'm not the right therapist for you. Best of luck, really. Best of luck, but I'm not the one. And so it all comes back down to energetic boundaries, especially when you're dealing with the vampire. You have to have good internal boundaries on yourself, so you are not feeding off of the supply of others, but rather working with the resources that you have within. And if you notice that the vampire is in your sphere, you have to put up a boundary so they can't feed off of you. So you always have to come from, your mindset has to be no. I'm not coming from a place of yes with the vampire. I'm coming from a place of no. The answer is no. You do not get access to this. And at that point, what you've really done is you have disconnected and you have retired from the role of being the orchestrator of your own suffering, because you are no longer willing to co-sign something at an unconscious level that leads to your re-traumatization. You are no longer going to participate in the thing that is victimizing you and disempowering you. And that's when you begin to hold your center of power, that nothing can take it away from you. It's rock solid. It's anchored into the ground. A goddamn tornado could whip through this bitch and nothing's changing. You dig? Like, you are centered, you're stable, your sense of self is shored up, you are whole, you are integrated, and you are steady. And nothing's going to change that. Nothing's going to penetrate that without consent. You hear what I'm saying? You must provide consent for all ways in which someone gets access to you, and vice versa. And so if something is penetrating your internal space and you're saying yes to it, but you don't know you're saying yes to it, you are participating in your victimization. So it's you're getting in your own way. And when we can come to a radical acceptance around these universal truths, that's when change and that's when healing happens. And healing ain't pretty. And it ain't easy, because if it was, everybody would do it. And we know that's not the truth. So it is uncomfortable, and it is frankly painful. And it is the only way. And it has to be something that you're willing to sign up for. Because the pain of healing is less than the pain of staying the same. And if you're willing to do the work, there is a light at the end of the tunnel where things resolve, peace is found, and wholeness is generated. And that's when things get easy. Now, nothing on the outside world changed. You changed. So when you start doing this work, right, and you get those people in your life that all of a sudden one day say, you've changed. What has happened to you? You've changed. What are you involved in over there? Are you part of some cult or something? What's going on? What are these teachings? Who are these people that you're following, that you're talking to? You can open up that book. You can put a huge check mark next to healing. Check. I'm doing it. That's confirmation. You want to hear that. Because staying the same is death. And change is life. And so I'm just going to cap it off. I'm just going to leave it there. But most importantly, always ask yourself on any of the archetypes, not just don't just stay in victim of oh, this is just happening to me and this sucks and everybody's trying to take advantage of me and this and that and this and that. No, how are you doing it to other people? You got to get real. You got to be willing to look in the mirror, always. And through that process, that's where you create space for joy and bliss and peace. and stillness and management over your own life. It doesn't get any better than that. That's psychic liberation. You have freed yourself from the bondage of your own mind. That is self-mastery. You have actually mastered the beast that lives within your own mind. You are now a formidable opponent. And nothing can now be more powerful than you because you hold your own power. So it's like, okay, so what, bring it on, world. Like, what else you got? What else you got? I could take whatever you're going to throw at me because I've just mastered the beast of my own mind. So nothing compares to that. So what are you? Nothing. So what do you got? And then the life throws shit at you and you start laughing at it. It's like, really? That's all you got? That's it? All right, fine. Oh, that's funny. That one's a cosmic joke. You know what I mean? You start reading the world symbolically and all of a sudden it becomes a game and it actually becomes fun. And instead of carrying fear, now you carry curiosity. Now it's like, ooh, well, how's this gonna play out? This is gonna be a good one. What's gonna unfold here? I don't know. And now the unknown becomes exciting instead of intimidating. And now you're holding your own power all the way through. Never once do you lose it when you take this perspective. So I'm just going to leave it there because I dropped a lot. I think this is like the longest episode I've probably ever done. But so much to say about it. So much to say about it. And I always like to jump on here when like my experiences are happening in real time. So I mean, that tells you that I've probably had an encounter or two. Or have looked within myself to find it and found something about the psychic vampire. So we'll leave it there. And that's it. That's it, you guys. I don't know. Okay, now I'm going to be in alignment with the word. I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to be back on the mic. And I'm not going to say that I will be back. I don't know if I will be back. I mean, I will be back. I just don't know when. So I'm not going to tell you, oh, well, I got another episode in another week or two. Maybe, maybe not. It's a cliffhanger. But either way, I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Be well, everybody. Third Realm Integration Podcast and related content is intended to provide information and/or entertainment only and is not a substitute for mental health or medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Do not delay mental health or medical consultation or substitute a mental health or medical professional's opinion because of what you heard on this show. Seek the advice of your physician or another qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a mental health or medical condition. The host of this podcast does not provide emergency support for mental health or medical issues. For questions or concerns, visit your local emergency room or contact your doctor. A quote from David Hartman and Diane Zimberoff, two of my teachers, titled From Therapy to Life Mastery. Let's use the personal transformation tools we all know to awaken from normality, what Abraham Maslow called a psychopathology of the average, so undramatic and so widely spread that we don't even notice it.